WZA family? I am here with, let me not introduce him yet. We are here for the TYR Podcast. This is our third episode. We are super pumped. We have the one and only Mr. 305, Mr. Wadapalooza.
Pit bulls
You were
in the
like
house,
born at Wadapalooza,
maybe.
Mr. My best friend, my bestest best friend, my my amazing friend, my everything. Man,
What up, man?
this is kind of cool to have you here, Mr. Noah Ohlsen. Let's give him a round of applause. Can we do it?
Woo. Oh, close. That was for your dad joke.
Come on. That's
Uh,
good. It was supposed to be the crowd going wild. I pressed the
yeah.
wrong button.
Try another one. Oh, it's not that one. It's down
Definitely
there
not
somewhere.
that one.
Anyway,
We'll
thank
mess
you
it
so much
later.
for having me. It is cool to be a part of it now and for you to have said that I was born from the event. I think you having started the event, me kind of getting my start in the CrossFit space at the event, and for us both now to be so far down the road, still be associated with Wadapalooza, to have had such different like career trajectories since the beginning of that. It is cool to kind of reflect on the then to the now. And I think we're going to do a little bit of that today, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. We are Wadapalooza, the podcast. What we're doing here, the intention of it is to bring that celebratory mindset, that spirit into people's lives, wherever it is that they are. Most of them probably somewhere in the cold,
Mm.
getting them really excited to actually come and contribute and participate in this massive celebration that we have called Wadapalooza. So that's the intention behind what we're doing. We're just going to catch up. We've actually spent the majority of the day together. It feels like grabbing lunch with a great buddy of ours who celebrated a birthday today. Should we mention his name? Give him a shout out.
Mr. Aaron Helmley.
Yeah. So we're like, well, what are we going to talk about today in the podcast? And I don't know. We're going to figure it out, but it's going to be some good stuff. So,
I agree.
but because I do, we do life together. Why don't we share with, the listeners on what does life look like for Mr. Noah Ohlsen in 2023, December 2023? You're married now. You have competed in a few off-season events after the games. Max is still the most famous dog in CrossFit. Like, what's going on? Tell us what.
Somebody might try to argue that one. I don't know. I don't know
Okay.
which other ones there are out there, but
Update us a little bit on your life.
yeah, absolutely. So I am living my very best life, which is awesome. I feel like I've been doing that for quite a while and I'm very grateful for it. I think that for a long time, not much had changed, and still I'm living a pretty similar day to day, although I think there will be some major changes coming up in this next season. And what I mean by that is for the last 10 years, I've competed as an individual at the CrossFit Games and done everything that that lifestyle entails. And this 10th CrossFit Games, I deemed as my final individual one. And that means that I'm transitioning into the realm of competing on a team during the season in off-season events like Wadapalooza. I've kind of dipped my toes in the water doing team at Wadapalooza the last few years and have had so much fun that was some positive encouragement that was a direction I wanted to take things eventually. But outside of the big competition things changing in my life, some of the other major changes that you mentioned are that I am finally married, and that's huge, but it doesn't feel incredibly different because Joanne and I have been together for the last 10 years. So to just have finally tied the knot feels nice and feels official, but we still love each other in the same way that we have been for a long time. Speaking of 10, a lot of 10s this year. Max just turned 10.
Yeah,
He's
big
happy.
boy.
Yeah, happy, healthy golden retriever, which golden retrievers' lifespans can be anywhere from like 10 to 15, I think, is average. And so the fact that he's 10 and he's super, super healthy and he doesn't look very old. I'll show you a photo of two of his litter mates, his sisters, that were born by the same parents on the exact same day. And they look so incredibly different from Max.
Really?
It's mind blowing. He looks like he's 5 compared to
Yeah.
them.
Well, I
So
mean, those other brothers and sisters, I don't think they've been going to a CrossFit gym for 10 years.
that's got to be the main difference there for sure.
And they don't have lovely parents. But yeah, no, I
Yeah.
can imagine. That is kind of weird to think, though.
It is. I'll show you the pictures in a little bit. But anyway, so the Max and Joanne component of my life is steady and great. And that is keeping me happy and healthy. And the competitive landscape is changing for me a little bit with the team stuff. I've kind of taken the dive into it. The Rogue Invitational was my last individual competition for a while. I mean, things could change, but as of right now, I'm fully every event that I do from here on out is going to be team in some capacity. I just got back from Australia last week or earlier this week, I should say, and competed in the Down Under Championships with Chandler Smith and Tola Maracanyo. That was a great experience. We learned a lot. We took third. I feel like we should have won. That was our intention, and as it always is. Hopefully, we get a little redemption in a month at Wadapalooza. We're going to be competing as the same team. We're the Hombre Hombres, which is a fun name. Do you know what the word hombre
I
means?
think you just remind like different shades of
Yeah, exactly. It's
50
like
Shades
a
of Gray.
fade from dark to light, basically. And
Got it.
yeah, so
Love it.
it works well for us. And we've kind of got our team dynamic all figured out for the most part now, and hopefully show up even better for
Yeah.
Wadapalooza than we did.
Australia was your warm up for WZA.
Exactly.
Not
Yeah.
not to undermine the event. The event
No,
looked
no,
awesome out there. I'm saying as a team, you got to kind of learn how to gel with one another and
for
figure
sure.
out those dynamics and whatnot.
Absolutely. So we're looking forward to our next shot. I said to the guys in a text message after, I was like, usually you have to wait a full year for a shot at redemption. And lucky for us, we only have to wait a month.
Yeah, that's good. And so, do you want to give any insight on this team that you're putting together for the games, or not really?
Sure. Yeah. I can't fully release it, which feels kind
Yeah,
of silly. Like I don't need to be holding back any secrets to create hype or anything, but we had kind of agreed as a full team of
yeah,
4 for the season that we would do that officially soon. But I will say that I think a lot of people expected Chandler and I to be teammates for the season because we'd kind of teased that idea. He and I had spoken about it for quite some time. And the way that both of our lives unfolded when it came time to make that decision, he has established himself out in California at Invictus, and his wife loves it there. He loves it there. And so
yeah,
he's decided to stay in California, which I totally respect from him. I'm staying planted in Miami because we love it here at Peak, and we've got family and friends in the area. So Chandler and I are not going to be teaming up officially for the 2024 season, and Tola is going to be my male teammate.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
First time that's public news there, or what?
Uh
Maybe, maybe not.
some people may have heard that here or there, but and nothing has been officially announced. It's official, like we've
Okay.
100% decided on our team. Tola is going to be
Yeah.
that for sure. I will, I guess maybe tease. I don't know if people are already suspecting this, but Lena Richter is going to be one of the ladies that's on our team. She competed with us in Madrid, and so I think people can already start to put 2 and 2 together there. But she's got a ton of team experience. She's probably the highest level, most experienced team athlete currently on the female side of things. She's competed at the games on a team 3 years in a row,
Yeah.
has been on the podium at the games the last 3 years in a row. Her team, Oslo Navy Blue, took second, and third. And Tola took second last year. I've taken second at the game. So between the 3 of us, we have 5 podium appearances, and none of them are gold yet. And so that's our big goal this year, is for the 3 of us plus the other undisclosed female to finally
Nice.
take that step up to the
Seal the
top of the
deal.
podium.
All right, man.
Yeah,
Well, we're
very.
excited. I know the CrossFit world is going to be excited to see you transition into a different, style of competing and see like what your leadership looks like in the format of a team. I know I'm definitely excited about that. And then obviously the community down here in Miami at Peak, we're all really pumped for it. So
Yeah.
hold, I think the rest of the CrossFit world is, yeah, just excited to see that. So I'm curious, just as a little bit of a transition into talking a little bit more about you as a person, and I don't know, I see where you're at, right? Like I think when you touched up on life with my wife, life in training, like everything is like really I'm living my best life ever, right? And that is something that is, if I've watched you, right, just grow into the man that you are, is by design, right? I don't think anybody falls into a great life just because they got lucky, right? Like
Mm,
all the things that you have in life, a healthy relationship, a healthy body, a healthy business, like all of those things come from a place of design. You're intentional about building those things, and sure, there's things that have been fortunate around you that maybe were even out of your control, that that you can call them blessings or what have you. However, I want to talk a little bit about this life that you live now didn't come without some sort of struggle, some sort of challenges along the way. And I think part of celebrating, in that spirit of celebration, is to celebrate who you are now because of the challenges and the things that you've struggled with in the past to become who you are now. So can you maybe, think of or walk us through some things that you've struggled with in the past that have been challenging to you, whether it be in CrossFit, outside of CrossFit, just in life in general, that, that you've graduated from or that you've grown
Mm.
from? Yeah.
Certainly. Yeah. I think that concept of perspective is kind of what you're touching on, that in order to appreciate the good, you have to have an understanding of the bad a little bit.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily always true. I think you can enjoy good things happening to you if that's all that ever happens to you, but you can appreciate them a little more deeply if you've been in the darker places. Sometimes it makes the light seem even more beautiful. And in that regard, to be honest, I think I have lived a relatively fortunate life. Like, I grew up with two parents that loved me in a safe, comfortable home. I didn't have any of those struggles. I almost feel kind of guilty saying that, but the hardships that I maybe have experienced have come more through maybe just like insecurities and being unsure. And I think that's stuff that people often experience in life, no matter what realm of life you're talking about. But I've never like, I don't know, I don't have any of those really intense things like I went to jail or we were homeless or like, I don't know,
No.
nothing crazy has happened in my life that's like shaped me. I think a lot of the good stuff that I did have, the love kind of shaped me into who I am now, which I'm very fortunate for. But obviously life does come with struggles. And I think if I had to classify some of the struggles that I've had, it was with being unsure about who I was and what I wanted to do. And once I kind of figured that out, being able to figure out how to get to wherever it was that I had decided I wanted to go. And so prior to doing CrossFit, I really had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. I grew up playing sports. I played lacrosse primarily, played a little bit of water polo in high school and college, and never had the intentions of being a professional athlete. In fact, my freshman year of college, I was a psychology major and I thought that would be cool. I was very interested in that, but finished my first year and was like, am I going to be a psychologist though? Just sitting in an office
Can
behind a
you imagine that? Everybody
desk?
close your eyes for a second and just imagine
I'm
Noah not being a CrossFit Games athlete and being a psychologist behind the desk.
maybe in some capacity I could see it as like a partial thing, but I don't think I could do that all day, every day. I think
I
I'm
think
a
you'd be the
little,
guy like on Instagram giving psychological advice
maybe
and
if I
then
was
like
qualified
developing a
enough. Yeah.
brand from that.
Yeah. That could be
But
fun. But I couldn't picture whatever
yeah,
that was at the time. And so I knew I was starting to really get into health and fitness. My freshman year of college, the University of Miami offered a kinesiology exercise science program. And so I got into that. And that kind of led me to starting CrossFit. And basically, to summarize all that, I think once I finally did find CrossFit, fall in love with it, decide I wanted to be a CrossFit Games athlete, some of the struggles there were figuring out like, how do I convince myself that that is a realistic possibility that I could ever become a CrossFit Games athlete? Once I do that, what do I have to do to make that happen? And then along the way, figure out like who I'm becoming in the process. And I think there were some struggles here and there that I've been public about before in terms of identity and like trying to be somebody that I thought I needed to be rather than just being my natural, authentic self. And
yeah,
it took a while to be comfortable just being me and who I am and being silly and being kind and not being like a tough macho man kind of guy. Um, I don't know. I definitely went off on a little bit of a tangent there. I was trying to like create some struggles in my life because there is not any that jump out at me, thankfully.
yeah. Yeah, no, but actually, it's funny that you said that because you ended up where I was gonna guide us to was just that season of your life where like your growth into the top 0.001% of the sport was pretty rapid, right? I mean, I saw it from and rapid in comparison to what you see nowadays. I don't know how quickly people who start CrossFit in their 19, however old you were 18, 19, maybe
I think
19,
I
maybe
was
20.
19, just about to be
Yeah.
20.
I mean, and within 3, maybe 4 years, you made it to the games,
Mhm.
right? And that's it's rather quickly. So, you had a few of the pieces of the puzzle already in place. It wasn't like you just started working out. You had already been working out. You're around a good community, around competitors and what have you. But I guess what I'm getting at is, you quickly jumped into the NFL of CrossFit, let's say, with people that you were looking up to and admiring.
Mhm.
And you're like, oh my God, I'm here. I'm one of them. And I can beat almost all of these guys in a lot of these workouts now. And it was almost like, how do I handle this? Even just being around them. I think it was more when you were around them, it seemed like some of those struggles of like, do I act playful with them or do I
Yeah.
be serious and not talk to them? Like, what is, I felt like maybe those were some of your struggles that you dealt with in the beginning. It felt like,
Yeah, I could certainly reflect on that as being a tough time of, like, almost an identity crisis, right? You said, like you said, I was not a CrossFit Games athlete, and then maybe not overnight, but in a short period of time, I had become one, and figuring out what that meant and being titled something that's the same as these guys that I had looked up to that were like celebrities at the time to me, the guys that I would just watch videos of and had never met in person that I was looking up to. Now I'm peers with them, and I didn't really know how to handle that.
yeah,
I felt very insecure. I kind of felt like I didn't belong for a little while, and then I think when I started kind of just letting go of that and being more comfortable in, like, yeah, this I am where I'm supposed to be, and this is who I am, and I don't have to be any particular way. I was always stuck in thinking about, like, what are these people thinking of me
yeah,
right now? And I kind of stopped doing that as much, even though it still happens every now and then. And that just freed me to be a little more comfortable in my own skin.
yeah. I could see that. I think it was obvious when you made that transition. I think if I was to think of, and again, just as me, just as your, big bro, best friend, looking from the outside in, I think one of the things that I at least could feel some struggle with from time to time was like a sense of like pressure. So once you
Mm,
did make it to the top, right? And even though you didn't necessarily um do better or worse because of it, but it just felt heavy at
yeah.
times. We're like, all right, now I have, and the world has this expectation of me.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
That's a topic for sure that I didn't think of immediately when you mentioned struggles, but that is something that I have, quote unquote, struggled with probably for my entire career. And I think everybody does to a certain extent, but not many people talk about it. And that is dealing with the pressure and expectation and the discomfort of the lead up to a competition and the nerves that you feel. Sometimes when I talk about it, it feels overly dramatic to say. Like, I'm not in the moment now. And so to
Yeah,
reflect on it, I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. Like, the competition is a competition and doesn't really matter that much in the grand scheme of things. But when I am in the week before a big competition, man, it feels like it's everything in that moment. And I get so anxious and uncomfortable. And, like, I've had many, many times, probably the day before a competition, where that uncertainty and those nerves are so heavy that I've said to myself and I've said to Joanne and other
yeah,
people, like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I hate the way this feels so much that I feel like I want this to be my last competition. Like, I want to get it over with and just be done.
yeah,
And then the weekend goes on and you either do well or you don't. But regardless, usually this switch gets flipped and you're like, all right, I either did really well and I want more of that feeling of success, or I didn't do well enough and I want to get back in the gym and do everything I can to make sure I don't feel this way again. And you kind of forget about how uncomfortable you were just
yeah.
before it all.
And it's all worth it at the end of the day as well, right?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, to deal with, let's say you compete 6 times in a major way throughout the season, and it's always just the day or two before. So that's 6 to 12 days of discomfort for 350 other days of the year that you really get to enjoy. It probably is worth it.
Yeah. I mean, I never experienced it at your level, in terms of like a chance at the podium at the CrossFit Games multiple times, but just even the years that I did compete, right? The pressure more than anything was like, it's always one event, right? It's not like you have this full season to like, okay, like you give yourself, I don't know, football, let's just say 17 games to
Hmm.
get into a playoff position. And then where it's like, it's do or die.
Yeah,
Like every
everything's riding
single
on
thing is
that.
do or die.
Yeah.
And then you have an expectation of yourself to like, I know that I'm capable of podium. And then you have one bad workout and then you start questioning yourself, like, am I though? And like, maybe the same is true. Whereas like, okay, like I finished whatever, let's just say, the first year you finished eighth, right? But really you were wearing the leader jersey for quite some time. So that next year, like I definitely like should be on the podium
Hmm.
or damn near close. And then every single year you're like close, but you don't make it. And then you're like, my goal is to win. You have one bad event. I could just
Yeah.
feel those wave of emotions. And I think very few people, right, in the world, in any endeavor, and that's why I like want to chat about it a little bit, because it's a very unique experience that very few people ever have. And you can almost see, I like sometimes will relate like tennis. I think you could tangibly see emotions
Mm.
shifting from like one set to another, like the
Yeah.
momentum of an athlete that's gaining a little bit on the other.
Yeah. That's
And I
interesting.
feel that in CrossFit, like from one event to the other, like
Hmm.
managing your emotions to continue to have that confidence and belief and ease the pressure. I feel like I'll close with this, rambling a little bit on this topic, but the last couple of years that you've competed, I think you've done just as good, if not better, than some previous years. And I've just noticed that like you took the pressure of winning off, and you've elevated not only your, experience overall and your enjoyment, but also your performance.
Yeah. I think that is a double-edged sword. And if you fall one way, it can be in your favor. I think in 2019, that was the first year that I had ever alleviated a little bit of that pressure. I had an ideal lead up to the games. I remember finishing eighth at the Rogue Invitational, which wasn't the games. And like that felt like it was over for me. I remember just calling Max and being like, man, I don't think I can hang with the big dogs anymore. And went into the games with the thought that maybe I can't hang anymore. And if this is going to be my last time competing at the games, I really just want to zoom out and appreciate the experience of being here instead of just feeling the pressure all weekend and
Yeah.
either failing to win or winning. And I did great that year. Obviously, I was very free. I had a lot of fun. I competed really well. But then I've had other years beyond that where I'm like, okay, that's the secret recipe. I need to like not care as much. But if you don't care enough, then you're probably not training as hard. Like I think a little bit of the pressure
Yeah,
is probably
for
good for
sure.
you to
Good
push you really
balance.
hard. So I've had some years where it's worked really well and some years where it maybe didn't play out in my favor on the leaderboard, but perhaps I enjoyed the experience overall. But that's also tough because winning is an incredibly enjoyable experience. The times that I've won are probably the times that I've had the most fun. And so what do you prioritize, the experience or the winning? And do you get lucky and get to enjoy both? Like that's happened before for sure. I think the first year that I did team with Chandler and Travis at Wadapalooza was 2021. I think it wasn't last year, but the year before. And it was like the absolute perfect combination of us having a blast together as a trio of friends and crushing it. And it was just like euphoric all weekend. All three of us were like, man, it doesn't get any better than this. We're crushing every
Yeah.
workout and we're having so much fun doing it. And that's very rare, but it can happen. And yeah, I don't know. That's
Yeah.
a little
No,
bit of
let's touch up on that. I think there's this little event out in Miami somewhere that
WZA.
that does a competition on the water in between the buildings, and that maybe has a little bit less pressure, right? And
Mm,
elevates a little bit of the fun there. So you've been doing that since year one. You haven't missed a year, have you?
no, sir. Is this coming on 12?
This is 12.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
it's wild.
Yeah.
So
That
you,
means I've been doing Wadapalooza almost as long as I've been doing CrossFit.
yeah, I think we talked, say, well, this is the 12th event, 11th year, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah,
Like
yeah.
if it was a birthday, it'd be 11 years old,
Right.
but the 12th event,
Okay.
because it like
The first year
first
was,
year's
yeah, I get it.
year zero
Yeah, yeah.
event number one. So, anyways, enough with the math. Tell us a little bit about some of your experiences at Wadapalooza. What are some of the most memorable ones?
Man, there have been so many. They're just all like jumping in at me right now, and I'll try to like list them off as they're coming.
In order of the most epic. No, just
Oof.
kidding.
I mean, I probably maybe the Chandler Travis, the year that we won the first time was really, really cool, very special in that way. That's up there for sure. But one of the first memories that comes back to me was, I think in 2016. So I had a little 3-year streak where I won Wadapalooza back to back to back as an individual, which was very cool.
The hat trick. Let's
Yes,
go.
they call it that. And one of the years, I don't remember if it was the first, second, or the third, but there was a workout. You'll probably remember since you I think probably programmed it, that finished with 10 thrusters at 165. It
Mm-hmm.
was the last event, and it was out by the
It
water.
was a chipper. Yeah.
Yeah, it had bar muscle ups maybe with it, some other stuff. But I remember I was in the lead going into that event. It was the last one. So if I did well on that event, I won the whole competition. And I got to that last set of thrusters first and was doing my final 10. And the whole crowd counted them down for me, or
Mm.
counted, I don't know if they went up from 1 to 10 or down from 10 to 1, but I just remember as I was doing them, like hearing everybody celebrating me winning and looking around and just
You could have
soaking it
done
all in.
50 if you
Yeah,
needed to.
probably. But that was really, really cool and special. That'll always stand out to me. I remember there was another year that I had the same thing happening. Like I said, the enjoyment often goes hand in hand with success. Like if you're winning, it's super fun. At least for me, it is. Like when I'm winning, I'm in a place of like euphoria and I feed off the crowd's energy. Like if they're having a good time, so am I. And there was one event that I was winning. This was probably the year that I won it the third time, which I think was 2017, 18, and it had some bar muscle ups and like similar feeling. I remember being in the lead of the event, doing bar muscle ups on Flagler and just like looking out at the crowd and the lights and being able to be present and aware. That happens relatively rarely when you're competing, right? Because your focus is on exactly what you're
Yeah.
doing. But if you're doing well enough, sometimes you can take a second to, like I said before, like zoom out a little bit and appreciate everything that's going on. And I've had a handful of moments of being able to do that, which is very cool.
It's like pressing pause in the middle of a movie and being like, damn, this is really cool
A
right
little
now.
bit. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
dope.
But I also remember some of the tough stuff. Like I always remember the sled push around the fountain on year one. If you're listening to the podcast now and you're coming to Wadapalooza, you may not have even recognized, but in the middle of what's usually Vendor Village, or behind it, I guess, there's a big fountain. It's it's set up in a circle. And the first year, the final event, we had to push a sled.
There were not 50 vendors, that's for
No,
sure.
I don't even know if there were any that
It
year.
was like
Maybe there were. They weren't in
3.
that area,
Yeah.
but we pushed a sled around the fountain in a big circle, and that was just like very grindy and gritty.
It
And
was an empty sled pretty much, I think, right? Did it
yeah,
even
it
have
was
any
so
weight?
hard though. I
I think there were
remember.
sparks flying off the
Yeah,
sled.
yeah, it was
Do you
very
remember
cool.
how silly I had you guys finish the workout?
Like something up the bleachers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
You had to run up the bleachers and
that's funny.
yell something.
Let's talk about this because I feel like, and maybe this is our last topic depending on time, but talking about us being such good friends, you programming the events, me doing very well, there is that thing that's been whispered before that like Noah maybe only does well because Guido programs the events and Noah knows the workouts.
Oh, for sure.
And that's
You
never,
wrote the workouts, actually.
yeah. Guido asked me what I wanted
That's
to
it, bro.
do.
Like, I don't have time for this. I'm running an event. Can you guys just, you know, can you program the TYR Wadapalooza this year, please?
Yeah, my pleasure. Well, just to clarify, clear any of those rumors up, obviously, and all you can do is take our word for it, but that's never ever been
Yeah.
the case. In fact, I think because that could have been said, you went the extra mile to make sure that that wasn't the case. So anytime you were writing workouts, testing workouts, I had to like leave the gym and go train somewhere else for the day so that
Yeah.
I would absolutely not be able to find anything out. And
I did a lot of Sundays here by myself. I
yeah,
remember that.
gyms usually close. Nobody, I didn't even know
Yeah.
you were in here. But I genuinely don't think I can think back to ever even accidentally like knowing something about
I mean, it'd
Wadapalooza
be
before it happened.
impossible. I was notorious for changing the workouts like
That's
2
also
days
true.
before the event.
Yeah.
So like everybody would be upset because the scorecards had to change. I'm like, sorry, I just, I can't make up my mind here.
I think the only way that I maybe could have benefited from your programming is just because you and I are relatively similar athletes. Like we enjoy some of the same things. So I think if you ever programmed a workout that you would have enjoyed, it just so happened to be something that I would also enjoy
Yeah.
by like, but that's not
Yeah, but I mean,
cheating in
it's
any capacity, you know?
I think it's kind of ridiculous to even think it because the amount of success you were having in the sport at that time at the games
Yeah.
level. And let's be honest, right? Like the whole games lineup wasn't coming to Wadapalooza, and you're like coming in 8th at the games and first in Wadapalooza. Then you could say, right? But like that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
So
Wait, that was the case.
No.
that I came in 8th of the games and first at
Yeah, but
Wadapalooza?
with the same lineup?
Oh, right,
Yeah, it
right.
wasn't like
No,
Rich Froning and,
right.
whoever else was on the podium, Jason Khalipa, they weren't coming out to
Gotcha.
compete. And
There
not
were
to
a
say that you
handful of them, but
wouldn't
not
have beat
everybody.
them,
Yeah.
to take anything away from your performance, but at the same time, it's like you're not comparing apples to apples because it's not the same
Mhm.
people that you're competing against.
Yeah. It
Um,
was cool though how Wadapalooza did sometimes give me confidence going into the games because there were games athletes there. Like there
sure.
was a year that Cole Sager, Alex Anderson, I could list
Elijah Muhammad.
yeah, 10 other guys that were games level athletes, and I won Wadapalooza, and I was like, all right, well, that bodes well for me this
Yeah,
season. If I know I can beat these guys here, hopefully I can do the same thing on the biggest stage, not to take anything away from
sure.
Wadapalooza, but it's been cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's wrap it up with this last question is, you've done some pretty amazing things in the sport, not only in the way that you compete at the games and at other events. I think more importantly, just who you are, what you represent, your authenticity and the way that you carry yourself, right? There's a lot of things that people admire about you, that I admire about you, the way that you truly live this happy but hungry life. What would you hope, for your legacy to be? What do you want to leave behind? How would you hope to leave the CrossFit space, the fitness space, a better place than you found it than when you first came in?
Yeah. Thank you for saying a lot of that, by the way. It's cool to know that a little bit of my legacy is already starting to be written in that way, just from a few of the kind things that you said there. And to be honest, not to get too sappy here, but a lot of that stuff I did learn from you, and we don't have to get
Give
too
this
deep
guy a
into
hug right now.
that. But I think that it did take time for me to like figure it out, and it came along with the process that we talked about earlier of being comfortable with who I am. And I realized over time that who I am is somebody, or who I want to be is somebody that is genuinely happy, is genuinely kind, and I think those things often are shown in opposition to being competitively like dominant. Like you don't think of a dominant athlete as this like soft, happy, cuddly person, right? Like those two things don't go hand in hand. You think of Tom Brady and you think of him like fired up, yelling, and like not to say that he's not kind and awesome, but I think for a long time I thought like if I want to win and like crush people, that has to be my mindset. Like I have to be blood hungry and aggressive, and that's not who I am. And so I was trying to fake that and force that for a little while, like make myself use anger as my fuel source. And I realized after a while that that wasn't working because it was disingenuous. And eventually I was like, no, man, I'm like a pretty happy dude and I enjoy.
And I can crush workouts.
Yeah, right. Like they
Like,
can
let's keep like,
go
why
hand in
can't they go
hand.
hand in hand?
And that was how the Happy Hungry came about. I said, sure, I'm happy and you're going to see me smiling and laughing in the gym, but I'm also going to be working really hard. Don't let that
You
fool
don't
you.
like to lose.
For sure.
Like
Very
you are a
competitive.
very fierce competitor, and
Yeah.
that is where the fire comes out. But that doesn't
Exactly. And I think that's what it is. Like when I'm competing, I'm going to bring the fire, and then the moments in between is where I can have a ton of fun and try to find that balance there. So I think being able to encourage people, whether it's through the term or phrase happy but hungry or work hard, have fun, but that you can find balance there in whatever you do. Like you can be very successful and you can really enjoy the process of getting there. It doesn't always have to be this really negative drag of a grind. Like you can work really hard and you can have a ton of fun. You just have to be intentional about it and approach it in the right way. I think whether that's working out, if you're just a normal everyday gym goer, you go once a day for an hour, and you can look at it as like a fun hour where you're going to go in and get your butt kicked. You don't have to look at it as something that's super tough and intense. Or if it's like a work thing, I think if you're going to work and you feel like you want to climb the ladder and you just have to like grind until you get there, I don't know that that has to be the case. I think there's probably a way that you can climb the ladder, but do it in a way that you're going to enjoy, that people are going to enjoy being around you. That, in fact, could maybe even help you climb the ladder if you're an enjoyable person to be around. So I think happiness and healthiness, if I can help inspire people to kind of do both of those at the same time, that would mean a lot to me.
I love that, man. Yeah, it sounds like a mindset, right? That you can just go into life with regardless. I'm not, a competitor anymore. And so I could appreciate that and apply it to my life and say, okay, I'm here to trying to build a great business. And some things I really don't enjoy doing, some things I do, but attack it with that. Like, I want to grow, but I'm going to have a damn good time doing it. Right.
Amen.
So, man, thank you for being on this podcast, sharing extra time with us today.
Pleasure.
Um, Waterpalooza is coming around the corner. We're counting down. The TYR Waterpalooza will be here in no time. So those of you guys who are listening in and want to just get a little closer look, or maybe a high five. I know Noah's a very personable guy. He'll not only, hang with you, give you a high five, take a picture with you, but you want to see him, other athletes like him, and then any other uh, athlete that's in the space that, just is going to be part of this community and this celebration. Come down here for the TYR Waterpalooza. It's going to be epic. 4 days of nonstop celebrating community, fitness, and life. So we
Boom.
love you, bro. Thank you for hanging with us.
Love you too, man.
See
Thank
y'all.
you. Can't
You
wait
got
to
it.
see you guys there.